Hello everyone, welcome to Unknown Reviews. I'm Dylan, and on this channel I talk music, movies, and whatever else I feel like talking about. And today I'm going to be reviewing the new Westside Gunn mixtape, album, whatever it is, 10. That's the 10th installment in the Hitler Wears Hermes series. And yeah, I don't even know if Westside Gunn needs an introduction. He founded Griselda Records, he's a part of the Griselda rap group. They came onto the scene, I want to say in like 2016, started making some waves in the underground scene, and have just killing the rap game ever since, all the way to the point where they appeared on Kanye's new album, have had a lot of like really high profile features, and now they've essentially gotten to the point where on all of their albums it's a pretty big deal when they drop in the rap game. And on this album it is completely stacked front to back with feature after feature after feature. It was almost like overwhelming when I looked at the track list and I was like, how many people are on this? How many like seriously respected longtime veterans and newcomers are on this thing? It was absolutely insane. So that got me really excited for the album, and I gotta say that it delivered for me, which is really good for me. Like, it makes me really happy because I was a bit worried going into it, just because my main question going into this album was like, why does it even exist? There's been so many Hitler Wears Hermes projects. Westside Gunn has to be approaching like 20 albums by now. Albums, mixtapes, whatever you want to call them. And he doesn't even enjoy rapping that much. He's already made it. So I'm like, why is, like, what was the point of this existing? That was the first thought that I had. But then I'm listening to it with the thought in the back of my mind, trying to figure out why this album exists. And as I get into the tracks with Run the Jewels and Busta Rhymes and A$AP Rocky, and just like star after star after star showing up on this album, I realized, I was like, this album is just a celebration of hip-hop. All of these really cool rappers coming together who have made it, who have made their mark on the industry, on the scene, and they're just there to have a good time and to make some really quality rap. It doesn't have to be, you know, their magnum opus. It doesn't necessarily have to be this crazy, super intense, you know, album like maybe some of the albums they would have dropped in the past, you know, when they were really trying to make a name for themselves. Most of these guys have already made it. That's kind of the point of this album, is it's not necessarily to bring anything new to the table, to celebrate all of these artists making it and to have this album exist for the sake of hip-hop. When I look at it through that lens, it makes me appreciate it a lot more, because when I first listened to this album, at first I was sort of underwhelmed, save for a few tracks. But then when I listened through it again, even though there's probably not a single track outside of like Nigo Lewis that is really bringing something new to the table in terms of like production or vibe, when I really paid attention and I tried to give it my full focus, which for me is hard to do sometimes with Westside Gunn albums because they're so all over the place, when I really focused, it was a really enjoyable rap album, and still will probably be like a top 10 project of the year, top 15. And that's just really cool to see. And it seems like all of these really talented artists are like, we just made this because we could. I think that's where Westside Gunn is coming from. And he says it a couple times on the album in different ways. He's basically like, I don't even try that hard, and this is what I come up with, which is already better than a lot of rappers. So it's cool to see. It's really cool to see. Like, my favorite tracks on here, I'll start with Nigo Lewis, because I think that's the track that is going to get buried in this album, and it really shouldn't. The instrumental on this thing, peak Griselda to me. It's like all the best parts of Griselda times 5. You've got his ad-libs, his like trademark ad-libs at this point, swirling around in both channels, panning, right, with a bunch of reverb on them, and then you've got someone else talking in the back, like, you know, just dropping flex bars, but then you've also got the instrumental, the actual instrumental, like the soul instrumental, that's also like caked in reverb, and it's just this really like psychedelic experience. It's so heavy. Like, I love the instrumental on this, and this stuff, it was the only time on the album that I felt was truly like experimental and bringing something new to it, which is why it was kind of disappointing when there weren't any features on it outside of his kid, which, I mean, like, have your kid on there, like, why not? But I'm like, out of all the tracks that you picked to not have a feature on, this is the track. That's such a missed opportunity. Despite all of that, the atmosphere of the track is so unique, and a track like that is truly only something that Westside Gunn can do. I love it when he takes tracks and really makes them unique and makes them his own. Even if he doesn't feel like rapping, he's such a unique rapper that when he actually tries, a lot of good things happen. Nigo Lewis is definitely my favorite track on the album, but right behind that, it's so close, is Science Class featuring Busta Rhymes, Ghostface Killah, Raekwon, and Stove God Cooks. This track is so good, and it's unlike anything else on the album in terms of like the instrumentation. It's this like almost like summery, like sunny kind of like, I don't know, like bop. You're gonna get the wrong impression if I say bop, but when you listen to the rest of the album, it's not caked in reverb. It's a very upfront kind of beat, and it's not as like smoky and hazy as a lot of the other tracks on the album. And within 10 seconds of the song, Busta's already rapping, and he's already said like 1,000 words. I mean, he's been doing it for so long at this point. Like, he is another unique rapper. There's nobody else like him. He just wrote this beat so well, and for such like a light kind of like upbeat kind of beat, to have Busta on it with his really raspy, low, growly kind of voice, you would not think that it would fit. It fits so well, and I think that's a testament to just Busta being able to adjust to any track. So, I mean, that was really, really great. And then obviously Ghostface Killah and Raekwon did their thing. They both were really, really great. I want to listen to some of their stuff more. So, I mean, like, I loved having them on here. They did a great job. And then Stove God Cooks all over this album, and this song is no exception, kills it. People have been saying it for a while now, but for whatever reason, it still has not caught on like it should. Stove God Cooks is up next. He is up next. So good. I don't even remember if Westside rapped on that track. Like, that's going to be a common theme throughout this album, is that the features, for the most part, blow him out of the water. And I don't particularly think that's a bad thing. At this point in Westside Gunn's career, I'm past the point of trying to, like, dissect him as a rapper or anything like that. I'm just like, just give a good project with some good vibes, pick some good artists, be the kind of, like, curator type role, and I'll be happy. And that's what he did on this album, so I was very happy with that. So, like, I don't even remember if he rapped on that track, but it doesn't matter. The next track, actually, maybe this is the only other track that I felt like was, you know, like a little bit experimental. God Is Love with SD Keisha Plums and Stove God Cooks. That track might be my favorite. I don't know. It shouldn't work, and it almost doesn't, because they're rapping over this really reverb-laden vocal sample that's just saying God is love over and over again. But as they're rapping over it, they're not really rapping in sync with it. The soul sample in the back is kind of like, it's kind of doing its own thing. No one is in line with the actual instrumental, but I don't know why. It doesn't matter. Like, it just ends up being this really intoxicating, like, swirl of sound. SD Nack does a really good job on his verse. I've never heard of him before. I think he might be a new Griselda signing. I'm not sure. I haven't been as tuned in with what's going on with the record label. So guys like him, guys like Rome Streets, I don't know as much about, but I really liked him on this track. And then, like, Stove God Cooks, again, like, just did such a great job with his verse. His ad-libs are so good. They add so much character and personality to, like, every song that he's on. And Keisha Plum fit just perfectly on this track. I really love it when she shows up on Griselda projects, because she has such a rich voice and just such a charismatic way that she goes about her spoken word and her poetry. It's just a vibe. I love it. It's great. I want to see her on more things. But yeah, this beat was by Conductor Williams. He does, like, a bunch of the beats on this thing, which is great to hear, because, like, Conductor has been with them for a while. So yeah, God Is Love was really good, really trippy, and, like, again, like, it shouldn't work, but it does. Westside did rap on that one too, but again, I don't remember a single word that he said. And that's not an insult, that's just the reality of the situation. This album is about his features. Case in point, the next song, Switches on Everything, is Run the Jewels. There's no way that Westside Gunn is out rapping Run the Jewels, and he doesn't. It's Run the Jewels and Stove God Cooks again, who's on like 8 of the 12 songs or something like that. It's like Jay-Z on The Never Ending Story by Jay Electronica. Like, it's like literally almost a duo album with Stove God Cooks and Westside Gunn. But on this track, Switches on Everything, it's the two of them with Run the Jewels. And again, it's just another solid, great track. P has a really nice flow on his. I think he had the best verse, in my opinion. He stood out the most. Obviously, Killer Mike did his thing. But I don't know how I feel about Killer Mike fast rapping. I'm also somewhat new to Elp and Killer Mike, but I've heard enough of them. Like, I know they're really quality, so I'm not coming at Killer Mike. Killer Mike's great, I know, but I just haven't heard him on a track with this kind of flow, and he still has some great lines on it, but I think that LP kind of hit the pocket the best. But yeah, I really like the kind of like hopping and starting instrumental on this one. There's these very heavy synths, and I think maybe like some horns, and also piano chords in there. It's an interesting piano chord progression. I haven't quite yet figured out what the chords are. I'll have to like pay more attention next time and jump on the piano and see. But yeah, this track was really solid. It was really great to hear Run the Jewels on here. Mac Don't Stop was also really good. That was just Westside on it, but it was kind of like a saxophone laden type beat. That was really cool. But the track that made me remember why I loved Griselda was the last track, the 10-minute closer, Red Death, with like 10 people. Like, on this track, you've got Armani Caesar, Benny the Butcher, Conway, Jay Worthy, Robbie Takaka, Rome Streets, and Stove God Cooks, and Westside, produced by The Alchemist. This track was really cool. There's this really kind of like gritty, grimy, like bass synth laden beat. But The Alchemist keeps it simple and just leaves the door open for all of these guys and Armani to just go for 10 minutes straight. And it's just nothing but bars after bars after bars. Everyone brings something different to the track. I don't even have a favorite. I'm just so happy to have all of them there. And it just reminded me, even with some of the newcomers, like I said, it's not classic Griselda, like Rome Streets is new. I'm assuming Jay Worthy and Robbie Takaka are a part of Griselda now. I don't know. Stove God he's pretty classic Griselda at this point. But it was just so nice to hear Conway and Benny and Westside on a track again, because it just doesn't happen very much anymore. Like, they've pretty much all kind of created their own lane and are kind of doing their own things, but it's great to see that they still, at the end of the day, no matter what differences they have, I don't know, like, sometimes it seems like they're beefing, sometimes they're fine, sometimes it's all like made up, sometimes it's not. I don't know where they're at right now, but I'm just glad to see that they're on a track together, that everyone's there. I'm really glad to see Armani Caesar included as well. I might react to her album if there's enough interest in it, but I definitely got to check it out, because every time I hear Armani Caesar on a track, I love her. She's great. She's great here. She just has a really cool presence on the mic, but also a really unique voice as well. Every time I hear Armani, I know it's her. And that's one of my favorite things about an artist, is when it doesn't matter where they are, I hear them and I'm like, that's them. Like when I was listening to Peppa's with Black Star, I was like, that's Yasin Bey right there. This track was just really solid, and it just reminded me of how far Griselda's come and really kind of like how much they've impacted the rap industry. That's kind of what DJ Drama was talking about. I forgot that he was even on this thing. I loved having him on when he showed up, but he didn't show up a lot. Like, I wish he would have been on the album more. Yeah, it was just a really great posse cut, and I was walking throughout campus listening to this track, and at one point there was just a smile on my face. I was just like, this is why I loved Griselda. This is why I still love Griselda, even though I don't listen to them quite as much. For moments like this where they can kind of just jump on a track and just dominate. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this album. I don't want to forget Peppa's though. I don't want to forget that song, because that song was really, really solid. I really like that song a lot. Kweli's verse was so good. I don't think I've ever heard Talib Kweli before, actually. I've heard Yasin Bey on a few of the underground cuts like with Navy Blue and Billy Woods, but I don't think that I've heard Talib Kweli before. And immediately when he started rapping, I was like, this guy's amazing. This guy is so good, which, like, yeah, obviously, I know, like, he's a legend. But I mean, like, I've never heard someone quite like him before. He has such a recognizable sound. It's kind of like high-pitched voice. It works really well contrasting with Yasin Bey's like really kind of low-pitched delivery. And yeah, I loved that track. Shootouts in Soho, I don't know if I mentioned that one before. I thought it was decent. I liked it. It was kind of, it was a chill vibe. It wasn't anything crazy. I wish that A$AP Rocky would have been on a different track. I just don't know that this instrumental suited him the best. Don't get me wrong, I still like the song quite a bit, but I would have rather have heard him somewhere else. But once again, in my opinion, Stowe Got Cooks steals the show. He kills this track and kind of out-raps the other two, in my opinion. The first three tracks, I mean, the first track is an intro. It was cool, and I really liked the instrumental, but it went on for way too long. This album wasn't that good to justify that intro, you know what I mean? So, like, I kind of skipped past it after a little while. Fly God Jr. did not work for me. Fly God Jr. had me pressed. I was worried that this album was going to be trash, honestly. And I hate to say that, but like I was listening to this song and I was like, oh, okay, he's kind of on more of a trap production or whatever. And I was feeling it for like the first 40 seconds. And then my face just slowly started fading. It's like I was like smiling first, I was into it. And then I like just slowly started nodding my head. And then about like halfway into the song, I was, what if I just don't like this? Like, what if this is kind of mid? So I just don't think it worked. There was not enough going on. There was not enough going on in the beat. Like, it had a solid foundation, but there was nothing happening really. It was such a stark beat. It was so minimalist and not in a good way. And it really didn't help that DJ Drama is screaming at the top of his lungs about how, like, no one can compete with Westside on a track that has such low energy. It just did not work. And then Super Kick Party didn't really do much to offset that. I felt like it was also kind of low energy. It was kind of just like a very middling instrumental. To me, that beat has been on every Westside Gunn project. Not that exact beat, but like a beat that sounds just like it. I mean, I could say the same for a few other tracks on here. Like, the instrumentals on this album are not really the selling point, save for like a few tracks. It's really about the rappers and the guests, which I don't mind because everyone does a really good job for the most part. But yeah, Super Kick Party just kind of came and went for me. But again, we had 3 tracks out of 12. Well, I'm not gonna count the intro. We had 3 tracks out of 11 that did not have a feature on them. And one of them I felt like was too short and desperately needed a feature as much as I loved it, which was Nigo Lewis. I liked Mac Don't Stop. That was good. And I don't think that necessarily needed a feature. And then Super Kick Party, I had nothing to say about it. It just really wasn't interesting to me. So that's what I mean when I say, like, this album is more about the features than it is about Westside. But I think even he would say that. So it's not, I mean, it's kind of a criticism, but kind of not. I think I would kind of, like, save for Nigo Lewis, the album would have been fine without Westside, but I didn't mind him being there. So I don't know. I don't really have a point to make with that. It's just an interesting observation. But yeah, that's my review of 10 by Westside Gunn. I definitely think it's worth checking out. Like, I'm sure I'm not the only person that's kind of like, I cannot keep up with Westside Gunn's releases, or may even kind of be like, what's the point of listening to another Westside Gunn album? But I actually do think that this one is worth checking out. There's a lot of cool tracks on it, especially Science Class, Nigo Lewis, like I said. God Is Love, Switches on Everything. Like, there's some really cool tracks, and then the big posse cut at the end, Red Death. And I think there's also some really interesting, like, new players in the Griselda Records camp. It's really not just Westside, Benny, and Conway anymore. It's like a lot of people. But I think it works, and I think it works really well. And it still feels like Griselda. I think they've done a really good job at expanding their reach in the industry and the people that they work with without necessarily, like, diluting their sound. Like, a Griselda album still feels like a Griselda album, no matter like who is, the featured artist, whether it's a Benny album, a Conway album, whatever. Even if sometimes the quality might wane, it still feels very much Griselda, which I think is a really cool thing. But anyways, enough of me rambling on. That's my review of 10. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about the album. What were your favorite tracks? What artists would you have liked to see hop on this, since there were so many more? Like, I personally wanted to see Makami on it because he's also worked with Griselda. I would have died if Goldie was on it. Oh my gosh. You can't have like everyone on a track. So, but yeah, just let me know what you guys thought. Got a couple more reviews coming up. Got some movie reviews coming up, so stay tuned for those. Follow me at TikTok and Instagram on Unknown Reviews. And yeah, until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.